Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, it's almost like a Shakespearean fall from grace. Tampon Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, uber liberal, was Kamala Harris's vice presidential running mate. Had she won the election in 2024 against Donald Trump, I kid you not, Tampon Tim would have been a heartbeat away. Yes, that clown, that buffoon, that agent of communist China, that traitor would have been a heartbeat away from the presidency of the United States. And what a fall it has now been. Yesterday, he officially announced he will not be running for re-election for the governorship, for the governor of Minnesota. He is a two-term governor. In September, he said he was going to run for an historic, unprecedented third term. He thought he could run again in a blue state and pull off the impossible. And then the Somali fraud scandal exploded. And this Somali fraud scandal, which is clearly now mushrooming into one of the biggest scandals, not just in the United States, but in recent modern history, has shocked the conscience and and shocked the decency, frankly, of people in Minnesota, people across the country. And this Somali fraud scandal only gets worse and worse and worse. It has now been uncovered that tens of billions of taxpayer dollars, tens of billions, not billions with a B, were stolen, embezzled, siphoned off by the members of the Somali community, or to be more accurate, predominantly the Somali community in Minneapolis, St. Paul, where they were scamming every federal subsidy, every federal program, everything under the sun. Food programs for children, they stole. Healthcare programs, they stole. Medicare, Medicaid programs, they stole. Daycare centers, they stole. Whatever they could steal or embezzle or commit fraud, they did. The latest now that has been uncovered is that billions and billions of dollars were funneled for daycare centers, low-income people who need extra help, subsidized daycare centers, in which the Somali fraudsters didn't even have a child in their apartment. Basically, they were apartments that they were living in or homes that they were living in, which they claimed to be quote-unquote daycare centers, catering to people who are more low income, getting subsidies from the state or from taxpayers. And there wasn't one single child in the apartment or one single child at the home. They didn't even put 2 or 3 kids to pretend it was something like a daycare center. They just took the money and check after check after check, month after month after month. And so one YouTuber, literally one YouTuber, started to just knock on these doors, who, the addresses are claimed to be that they're daycare centers. And they knock, he knocks at Monday at 11 o'clock or Wednesday at 9:30 or 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And he's knocking on the door. Nobody's there. You look inside. Nobody's there. So this kind of massive fraud, we're talking billions of dollars, was exploding under Governor Tim Walz's watch. He could no longer contain it. The media was trying to bury it. They could not bury this story. And eventually, politically, it has destroyed him. His poll numbers dropped like a stone. The Democrats told him, you can't win re-election. And so Tim Tampon Walz yesterday had to bow to the inevitable. Listen now to this clown and buffoon say he will not be running for a third term. Roll cut 10, Mike.
2026 is an election year. Election years have a way of ramping up the politics at a time when we simply can't afford more of that in Minnesota. In September, I announced that I would seek a historic third term as Minnesota's governor, and I have every confidence that if I gave it my all, we would win the race. But as I reflect on this moment with my family and my team over the holidays, I came to the conclusion that I can't give a political campaign my all. Every minute that I spend defending my own political interest would be a minute I can't spend defending the people of Minnesota against the criminals who prey on our generosity and the cynics who want to prey on our differences. So I've decided to step out of this race, and I'll let others worry about the election while I focus on the work that's in front of me for the next year.
I mean, this guy's unbelievable. Honestly, he's unbelievable. And let me just play another cut because frankly, even the press corps was stunned at the blame shifting, at the absolute political incompetence of this man, how he even refused to take questions from reporters, how he was whining about the scandal, blaming everybody. He blamed Trump. He blamed conspiracy theorists. He blamed Republicans. He blamed conservatives. He blamed everybody but himself. Now, remember, Minnesota is a solidly blue state. The Democrats have run that state for decades. For decades. They control the governorship. They control the state house. They control the state senate. They control the state judicial branches. They control everything. How can you blame this on anybody but you? But no. Listen to Tampon Tim. I thought he was going to cry yesterday. Break down and cry. Roll cut 10B, Mike.
We can work together to combat against the criminals. We can work together to rebuild the public's trust and make our state stronger. But make no mistake about it. If Republicans continue down the path of abusing power, smearing entire communities, and running their own fraudulent game at the expense of Minnesotans, I will fight back with everything that I have.
Right. Tell me, if the Republicans are so bad, and they're responsible for, smearing the Somali community, as you say, and that they had a hand in this so-called scandal, but you can't give even an example of what they were involved in. Why are you stepping down? Well, actually, it's not even stepping down. Why are you deciding not to run? Why are you deciding to not run for re-election? If you're an innocent man, and all these people are the ones responsible, and this is all much ado about nothing, then why are you deciding not to run? Why are you stepping aside? You phony, you fraud, you. No, I'll tell you why. Because he was up to his eyeballs in fraud, in nonfeasance, in corruption. He knew about it. Look, there's only two theories about this. We're not talking about a few bucks here and a few dollars there. We are talking about at least $19 billion. By the way, that's your money. That's my money. That's our money. That's just the taxpayer. This is not just the taxpayer dollars of people in Minnesota. No. This is taxpayer money from all of us. These were federal programs that these Somali fraudsters were abusing and stealing on an historic, grand, massive, almost industrial-sized scale. Now, there's either door one or there's door two. The most charitable explanation is he's just so freaking incompetent that he's basically Mr. Magoo. That he is so incompetent that he had no clue what was going on in his own state. He just had no idea that they were fronting halal restaurants as daycare centers. Okay, you can look it up. Halal restaurants as daycare centers. and embezzling hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, and they just issue check after check after check with no oversight, no audit, no nothing. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Or it's door two. Okay? It's door two, which was he knew. He knew, and he deliberately looked the other way. Like everybody else in Minnesota, like every other prominent Democrat. Why? Because the Somali community is one of the most reliable voting blocs for Democrats. And so that was their game. Bring in illegal Somalians, third world illegal Somalians, put them all on welfare, allow them to scam federal taxpayers to the tunes of billions of dollars, as long as they voted for the Democrats and kept giving campaign contribution after campaign contribution after campaign contribution. 620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. So, just stand back, just objectively, okay? I mean, we all knew he was a buffoon. We all knew he was a clown. We all knew he was corrupt to the bone. So none of this shocks you, me, this great audience. But just objectively, here was a man who just over a year ago, was the running mate for the Democratic Party, second to Kamala Harris, the running mate to Kamala, who, had they defeated Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, he would be right now the vice president of the United States. Literally, as I said in my opening monologue, the heartbeat away from the presidency. And now he's become so unpopular. He has become so tainted by this exploding, and it really is exploding, this growing, exploding Somali fraud scandal, that he had to throw in the towel yesterday and say he will not be running for a third term. He will not run for re-election because the polls are saying he can't win. And frankly, many Democrats behind closed doors told him, don't run, Tim. You're going to embarrass yourself, you're going to lose, and you're going to badly damage the party. Go off into the good night. Now, he is such a coward, and he is such a clown, that he goes on, by the way, I played some of the cuts. He blames everybody. He blames Trump. He blames the media. He blames Republicans. He blames everybody for the Somali fraud scandal, except, of course, himself. So, this happened all under your watch. All of it under your watch. And I'm telling you, he knew. Oh, did he know? The only question now is, did he personally benefit? But I'll get to that in a second. But at least take questions from the media, tough guy. I mean, they're the ones who carried water for you anyway. So at least take a few questions. Not this loser. Nope. No, it was something to behold. He runs away. He runs away from the media, from the podium, and refuses to take questions. So he issues his statement. He does his whining. He does his bumbling. He does his, his blame shifting. And then he just runs out of the room. Roll cut 11B. Mike.
Tomorrow, I'll be back with you. I'll give you an update on America's best paid family medical leave program that is now a week into it. And at that time, I'll take all your questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Press. I'll have more tomorrow. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Press.
Are you saying we're going to take questions? Why didn't you?
Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, now those are liberal, Democrat hacks. And you hear in the background, wow. Why won't he take questions? Why wouldn't he take a single question? So, when even the hacks in the Democrat-controlled media are saying, this is pathetic. Come on. What are you, a 5-year-old kid? What, are you going to run off now and curl up like into a ball in the corner of the room somewhere? Like this is really, what a loser. Oh my God, is this guy a loser? Ay, ay, ay. So, this is the man that the media was trying to convince us just over a year ago was ready to be potentially president of the United States. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter, okay? And then I promise I want to take calls. Couple lines are open. We load up the lines. I want to go to the best audience in the business. 617-266-6868 is the number. What this fraud, and it's massive fraud, is illegal. They stole from taxpayers. They stole from taxpayers, not a dollar here, a nickel there. I'm talking $19 billion and counting. They stole money, I kid you not, that were supposed to go to autistic children. They claimed the money was to help autistic kids, and they literally just took the money and pocketed it. They stole money from the food lunch program for poor, malnourished children. They stole money from every federal program imaginable. They stole from food stamps. They stole from daycare centers. They stole from, as I mentioned, the food programs for children. It doesn't matter. Medicare, Medicaid, you name it, they stole it. That's a crime. It's crime upon crime upon crime. Much of it was done by Somali illegal aliens who shouldn't even have been in our country in the first place. And Tim Walz, for years and years, as this happened right underneath his nose, allowed this to happen? In fact, was complicit? He tried to cover it up. He tried to bury it. He was swimming in money from all of these Somali fraudsters and Somali groups. By the way, as was Keith Ellison, as is Amy Klobuchar, as is every Democrat from the state of Minnesota. The Democrats in that state are completely complicit in this, up to their eyeballs. And all this guy gets is he's not going to run for re-election? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go to the phone lines just very quickly. What is remarkable about this story on so many levels is the extent and depth of the fraud. It's chilling. Now, just in Minnesota alone, as I've said, we're talking $19 billion stolen, embezzled, siphoned. Most of them, not all, but the overwhelming majority were from the Somali community, many of them illegal aliens. And some of the money actually even went back to Somalia, to the warlords that run that place, or to Al-Shabaab, which is basically the Somali affiliate of Al-Qaeda. So to Islamic terrorists who go around slaughtering men, women, and children. So taxpayer money, your money, my money, was being used to fund Islamists' mass murder and terror campaigns against innocent civilians in Somalia. They try to wrap your head around that. Now, they were defrauding old ladies. They were defrauding daycare centers. They were defrauding autistic children. So let me just give you an example very quick, as then I want to go to the phone lines. This is how illegal and abusive this whole system, this whole fraud scheme was. The rates of autism, allegedly, in Minnesota were through the roof. You had all these people saying, my God, I don't know what's going on in Minnesota, but the average there of children allegedly autistic is several 100% higher than in the rest of the country. And so we just got to shovel more money and more money and more money to help treat these poor autistic children. Okay, to help them with school, to help them learn, to help them deal with certain disabilities. But it turns out that none of the money went to any real autistic children. They were cooking the books. They were just claiming, I've got 20 autistic children I'm taking care of at my so-called learning center, and there's none. Literally, there's zero. But they're charging them $12,000 a month of our money, federal programs. And everybody at the state level just said, okay, they just rubber stamped it. Okay, no oversight. Nobody was looking at this. Nobody went on site to see, well, are there actually autistic children? Are they actually getting help? Are they, is the money going to where it's supposed to go? Nothing. And they just pocketed the money or put it in their bank accounts and buying homes, buying luxury cars, traveling, stuffing their faces, eating out, sending the money back to the old country. A lot of it campaign contributions to Democrats, lining their campaign coffers. Wink, wink. I scratch you, you scratch me. You look the other way, keep the money flowing, and you get a nice kickback. And we take care of you. Meanwhile, actual autistic children, their parents are saying, there was no money for us. We kept asking for help, any kind of assistance, nothing, zero, nada. And to show you how corrupt Minnesota has become, and in particular, this is to me unforgivable, how corrupt the corporate media in Minnesota, and frankly across the country is. The man who broke the fraud story about the daycare centers, which is now, this thing is mushrooming. There are hundreds and hundreds of so-called daycares that were getting billions of dollars, and there wasn't a single child in there. What daycare center? It's a halal restaurant. Another one was a laundromat. Another one was people's apartments, and there's nobody in the apartment except for the couple. So a 23-year-old, and I'm not saying this to diminish the person, Nick Shirley is his name. My point is, here's a citizen journalist, a young kid, 23 years old, okay, a young man, and all he did was, well, they're saying these billions are going to these daycare centers. Here are the addresses. Let me just go see if they're actually a daycare center. And so he's literally just driving from place to place, and all he does, he's got a camera and he knocks on the door. And he says, you see, whatever, I'm just going to make up an address. 135 Johnson Street. This is supposed to be a daycare center. Here's the piece of paper. They got a $2.4 million grant, taxpayer money. Okay, let's knock. There's nobody here. There's nothing here. Well, there's nobody. And then, well, hold on. This is a halal restaurant. It's owned by this Somali couple. That's not a daycare center. It's a restaurant. You walk on in. There's no kids. They're serving halal. The next one, right beside it, was another daycare center. What was that? 3.6 million that they were getting to run a daycare center? It's a freaking laundromat. Again, but even then, it's like, okay, are they teaching the kids? Are they taking care of the kids? I don't know, on the floor or having them fold the clothes or something? No. And it went on and on and on and on. One guy with a young kid, a young man with a camera who just took the initiative. Let me see, follow the money. Look at the addresses. No, that's not a daycare center. Let's do the other one. No, that's not a daycare center. No, and before you know it, you're looking at hundreds of daycare centers and billions of dollars in fraud and outright thievery. You mean to tell me CNN couldn't do this? NBC News, CBS News, ABC News, with all the resources they have? The media in Minnesota, the Minnesota Tribune, that joke of a newspaper, sort of the state's version of the Boston Globe. You guys know you couldn't track the money? No. Now, all that money sloshing around, all of it, and Keith Ellison's getting a cut, and Tim Waltz is getting a cut, and Amy Klobuchar's getting a cut, and everybody, Ilhan Omar was at the center of it. Some people did something. Most of this was in her district. And I mean, she's raising money. She goes to the Somali community and they're cutting check after check after check to her campaign coffers. They stuffed her pockets with money. And nobody asks the obvious question. Hold on. You've got third world Somalis. Many of them have been here 10, 15 years. They're, in theory, all on welfare. But they're cutting thousands of dollars in checks? How did they get the money? Well, you think like people are that dumb? They're that stupid? So they're on welfare, but they're running daycare centers, or they're running school lunch programs, but the kids are not getting a school lunch. There's no lunch for any kids. Or I could go on and on. And nobody asks, nobody does anything because they were all complicit. They were all complicit. Ilhan Omar was complicit. Tampon Tim was complicit. Amy Klobuchar is complicit. And by the way, now, the rumor is that she wants to run for governor now that Tim Walz has announced he's not running for re-election. So, and her Senate term ends in 2030. So even if she loses, she'll still be senator until 2030. However, they may have made a crooked bargain. It appears now that Walz spoke with Amy Klobuchar, the senator, on Sunday before his announcement yesterday that he's not running for re-election. And it looks like the plan is, check this out, only the Democrats could come up with something like this. This kind of a sleazy, dirty, corrupt backroom deal. Tim, you step aside, Tim, and say you're not going to run for re-election. I run for governor. And then when I win, because we have a Democrat machine and the Somalis will help us steal the election, I then appoint you, Tim Walz, to my Senate seat. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask you, my friends, what do you make now of Tampon Tim's decision, Tim Walz's decision to not run for re-election? Is that enough? Obviously, he's now been taken out. He has been fallen by the mushrooming, exploding Somali fraud scandal. There's no question that has brought him down. I don't think it's enough. I think he needs to resign. He should no longer be governor. And frankly, he deserves to be behind bars. Enough is enough. But that's me. I want to hear from you. And the other question, is this just the tip of the iceberg? Many are now saying, whether it's Massachusetts, whether it's California, now there's a massive welfare fraud scandal being uncovered in Mississippi, that this is happening all over the country. That what we're finding now, what we're uncovering in Minnesota, is literally the tip of the proverbial iceberg. That these massive frauds of our taxpayer dollars, the stealing of social welfare programs, food programs, healthcare programs, that this is happening all over the United States. And the numbers could be in the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. If it's 20 billion and counting in Minnesota, imagine what it's like in places like here in Mass, or in New York, or in Illinois, or in California. I mean, we're talking big money. 617-266-6868. Steve in Houston, Texas. You're going to kick us off, Steve. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Steve.
All right. So, where's the DOJ?
Well, I mean, to be fair, the DOJ is the one that's doing any of the investigating and the arresting. What's incredible is 98 people have now been charged, for engaging in this kind of fraud. 85 of the 98 who have now been indicted are Somalis. So it's overwhelmingly a Somali issue or a Somali problem. Not all, but mostly. But this is all coming from the Department of Justice and the federal government, the feds. Tim Walz, not one person under Tim Walz has been indicted. No, the attorney general of that state, the Muslim, the first a Muslim attorney general, the first Muslim member of Congress, Keith Ellison, he's in bed with the Somali community. In fact, he told them personally, keep doing what you're doing. Just make sure you keep contributing to my campaigns. If you keep contributing to my campaigns, I'm not going to touch you guys. So none of this is happening. None of this is being investigated, or people are being indicted or prosecuted at the state level. That's how corrupt Minnesota has become. It's all coming from the feds, Steve.
Yeah, they're getting nothing but low-hanging fruit. And, it just disgusts me. We've got homeless vets. We've got, people living on the streets, and these people are robbing us blind. Jeff, there's one thing I was sitting here listening to you just eviscerate Tim Walz right in the beginning. And all I could think was, I would love to see you just once a week, maybe on X, have a program to where you interview or debate corrupt politicians. I would love to see that.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Look, one of the reasons why we don't do many interviews, they don't want to come on my show. Politicians only want to come on shows where they get softball interviews and are treated with kid gloves. And they know that if they come on this show, I'm gonna tear them apart. I don't mean ambush them or just attack them for the sake of attacking them, but I'm going to really hold their feet to the fire. And they don't want that. So, we've asked Tim Walz to come on many times. He's a coward. He won't come on. Kamala never wanted to come on during the campaign. Joe Biden's people, I could go on. Amy Klobuchar. When we were doing we were covering the primary in 2020 up in New Hampshire. Okay, this was February of 2020. We buttonholed one of her press people and we had her on. And we had her on only for 5 minutes. Honestly, Steve, I asked her a few mild, tough questions. I mean, it wasn't really, theirs weren't even fastballs. They were just, a bit of a tough question. And she's looking at her press aide like, get me out of here, get me out of here. I asked her if it was acceptable that Joe Biden kept touching women. Remember, there was a whole scandal. He kept inappropriately touching them, blowing in their hair, blowing in their ear, touching their shoulders. And it was one after another after another. And I said, well, you're a feminist. You claim to be a feminist. You're a progressive. I said, do you think it's unacceptable that he could be the nominee of the party and this is how he treats women? And she's looking at the press aide like, how did you get me into this interview? And I remember thinking, like, you can't say it's unacceptable? Like, no, you shouldn't treat women like this? So, and she ran off after 2 minutes. I gotta go. No, I have another appointment. No, I'm sorry. I'm scheduled to do another interview. Bye. So they don't want to come on because they're scared. No, look, I got to tell you, Steve. Again, where's Pam Bondi? Tim Walz needs to be put in handcuffs. There's no question. Keith Ellison needs to be put in handcuffs. The lieutenant governor of Minnesota needs to be put in handcuffs. This was a scandal that was everywhere. It was rampant. Everybody knew about it. Everybody was complicit. And look, I got to say, for the first time, you're seeing many Minnesotans say, I don't want to just hear talk. I want arrests. I want indictments. I want convictions, not of the fraudsters themselves, the low-hanging fruit, as you put it, Steve. We want politicians to go to jail. They robbed from, it's not for effect, from hungry children, from autistic children, from homeless veterans, from the elderly in these, assisted living communities. I mean, how low can you go? And they stole billions and billions and billions. And because they're giving you kickbacks and lining the pockets of your campaign coffers and keeping you in power, You just look the other way? No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Either we're a nation of laws or we're not. Either we have the rule of law and everybody's held accountable by the law, or we have a banana republic. Steve, am I wrong?
Oh, no, you're right. You're right. And, the thing about not getting these people on your show, I agree. They're crooks, and, sunlight is the best disinfectant. But I've been listening to you for at least 5 years, and I've rarely missed a show. And the best advice I can give the audience is spread the word about your show. I've probably got, I don't know, at least 100 people that to start listening to your show, and they love it.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
And, if you were able to get these politicians on there, I believe you would probably have the most watched show in history.
Thank you.
So,
Steve, thank you, and God bless you, and Happy New Year. All the best to you and your family. Thank you, Steve. Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome. Oh, that's Tampon Tim to a T, Bruce. Oh, he's a full moon bat. No question about it. Bruce, what do you think? He says he's not running for re-election. Do you think more is coming? That's what they're saying in Minnesota. The reason why he's not running is there's even more that's going to come out, and he can't survive it. What say you?
He should run for his life. And what they've done, it's communist. That's how they roll. That's how the Democrats roll. They steal, they take. Look at Obama. Look at anybody that was in office prior to our king, as it were, for lack of better words. I'm sick of these people. They steal. They just take, and then they deny it. They lie to you. They say that, oh, that's not what we're doing. It's sickening, as you would say, sickening. I'm beside myself. The American Indians that were they live here, they've been here, and you're bringing these Somalis that are stealing? What? It's unbelievable, Jeff. Am I off the chart?
No, you're dead on. Look, this is, I was on Newsmax a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to be on again, but I was away on vacation. But was just before I went away on vacation. And so I always debate a liberal on Newsmax. They always put me up against a liberal. And so I made the point about how, over 81, 82% of the Somali community in Minnesota is on welfare. So I made that point. And of course, this liberal right away, racist. And I'm like, how are facts racist? How are facts racist? Over 80% it's a fact, of the Somali community is on welfare. Now, I'm sorry, but if you want to come to the United States, you should come here and have a paycheck. You should come here to have a job, to work, to pay taxes, to contribute, to follow the law, to respect our country. I said, how is this respecting our country? How do we suddenly owe it now to put all these Somalis on welfare and we pay for it? Now, the answer was this. Well, when the Italians came, listen to this, people blamed the Italians for the Cosa Nostra, the Italian mob. He goes, it's the same thing. You're trying to smear a whole bunch of people because, based on the actions of a few. I said, well, number one, there was an Italian mob. It wasn't a figment of people's imagination. And number two, are you seriously trying to compare Italian immigrants to Somali immigrants? Italian immigrants are some of the best immigrants the world's ever seen. Everywhere Italians go, and I'm not saying this because my wife is Italian. Okay, I may be slightly biased, but still, I'm telling you, it's true. United States, Canada, Venezuela, Argentina, I don't care where they go. They contribute, they work, They get a job. They pay taxes. For the most part, they follow the law. So don't compare Somali immigrants to Italian immigrants, whether it's Somalis in Canada, Norway, Denmark, and they've been there 15, 20, 25 years. 78% on welfare, 83% on welfare, 89% on welfare. So I'm sorry. Some groups, and by the way, right away the left's going to say that's racist. No. Nigerians are very successful immigrants. Okay? Very successful. You look at, by the way, the most successful group in the United States, everybody included, are Indians from India. Okay? Americans of Indian descent. Number one per capita in income. Right after them, Syrian Americans, Lebanese Americans, Arab Americans, Egyptian Americans. Others, Chinese Americans or Americans of Chinese descent, Japanese descent, Korean descent. Nigerians, I believe, are in the top 10. So what I'm saying is certain groups from around the world are just much more productive, hardworking. They take advantage of opportunities. They're there to get a paycheck. They're there to work. They're there to be mobile. They're there to respect the law. They're there to contribute. They're good immigrants. And others, like the Somalis, and individually there could be very good people, of course. But as a group, who are we kidding? They're running one of the biggest scam fraud operations in the history of the United States, with the full blessing of their representative in Congress, Ilhan Omar. And so why are we bringing them in? Like what? So stealing $19 billion from us, robbing us blind. How does this make America better? How does this make us stronger? How is this in our national interest? So what did Tim Walz do? And that's what the liberals do all the time, Bruce. The first thing that loser did was to say, if you say Somalis are involved in fraud, it's white supremacy. That's what he said. Then it turned out, geez, there's a lot of Somalis involved in the fraud. Oh, okay. Then, according to him, okay, forget that. Then, according to him, but it's not much fraud. It's just a little bit of fraud. And then it turns out, no, it's almost 20 billion and counting in fraud. Okay, well, then we should import more Somalis. I swear. Walz comes out. He does an interview, a press interview. The American flag, the Minnesota flag. He gets up, pulls out the Minnesota flag, removes it, and replaces it with the flag of Somalia. And then says, we should bring in more Somali migrants into the United States and into Minnesota. Because, without the Somalis, we're nothing. I'm telling you, then the libs came out and said, Somalia built America. The Somalis built America. That was their line. How stupid do you think we are? And by the way, when he took that Somali flag and replaced the Minnesota state flag with the Somali flag, you can look it up. It's everywhere. It's online. That's when he deserves the name Traitor Tim. More than Tampon Tim, he deserves the name Traitor Tim. That and the fact that he's been in bed with communist China now, going back at least 30 years. And the media knew all of this. Kamala Harris knew all of this. And she still picked him to be her VP. And the media tried to desperately sweep all this under the rug until they just couldn't sweep it under the rug anymore. So when I say the media is the enemy of the American people, that we have fifth columnists in the media, just look at how they treated Tampon Tim or Traitor Tim and how they tried to cover up the Somali fraud, his ties to communist China, what he was doing in Minnesota, because they wanted the radical left to seize power and hold on to power and stop Donald Trump at all costs. Now, I'm sorry. Heads have to roll. Heads have to roll. I'm telling you that if you stole money from a food stamp program, or if you stole money from autistic kids, or if you stole money from lunch programs that were intended for, malnourished or starving children, you, and rightly so, would go to jail. How come Tampon Tim Walz is now angling with Amy Klobuchar that she's going to appoint him after she wins the governorship? If she does, she's going to make him senator. She wants to give him a parachute in which it's almost a promotion. He goes from being governor of Minnesota to now U.S. senator from Minnesota. Yeah, you can't make this up. Pam Bondi needs to step in and say, Traitor Tim, you were involved. You aided and abetted this. You are complicit. You are corrupt. This is your scandal. You own it. You're going to jail. Period. Full stop. Bruce, agree, disagree?
What they're going to do, Jeff, is do what you do. Send it. Don't hesitate. Don't stop. Screw them. Screw them. The whole television BS. They're all in with it.
I'm with you. No, I'm with you. Look, it's either we're serious or we're not serious. And I'm telling you, it's time to get serious. Because I'm with the American people now. This guy doesn't even have the dignity. He doesn't even have the respect for the voters to take questions from the media. He's not running for re-election because of this fraud scandal. Okay, it's taken him out. He's fallen now because of this fraud scandal. And he's such a chicken. He's such a coward. Frankly, he's such a loser that he just runs away from the podium. And by the way, who could be the next senator from Minnesota? This is how he treats us. This is what he thinks of us. Aaron in Idaho. Thanks for holding, Aaron, and welcome.
Gosh, Jeff, I missed you so much from the vacation. I kind of wished you'd do a bonus show last week after everything that had happened. Now, I'm in Idaho visiting, but I've been living in Nevada for the past several months. Now, before I get to my points, I got to say this. Mike, is it time for a commercial break?
Well, almost, actually. It's about, you got about a minute, 20 seconds, so let her rip, Aaron.
All right, Jeff, I love history, so I've been doing a lot of research on the mafia that built Las Vegas. You know the saying, Las Vegas was built by the 3 M's, Mexicans, Mormons, and the mafia. Jeff, these politicians are more greedy and corrupt than the mafia. In the 1970s, the mafia did something called the skim, where they stole $1 million or $800,000 from the casinos. The biggest mafia hit of all time was the Lufthansa heist, where they stole $5 million in cash. Tim Walz and the Somalians have stolen $20 billion. The mafia should walk up to Tim Walz, get down on their knees, and say, "We're not worthy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy."
Aaron, please hang on. I want you to finish your thought, but you are dead on. You're absolutely dead on. And look, again, I'm not romanticizing the mob. I don't like the mob. I hate the mafia. They didn't steal from hungry children. Okay, as the Somali fraud scandal now grows and grows and grows, Tampon Tim Walz now bows to the inevitable. He says he will not be seeking re-election. Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, now is, the speculation is, in fact, it's being widely reported, she had a conversation with Tampon Tim 2 days ago, forgive me, on Sunday, where she basically urged him to drop out. Looking at the poll numbers, he can't win. His approval numbers are low and getting even lower in the wake of this scandal. And so she now believes that she can run for the governorship and win. And of course, Walz will endorse her. He will support her. He will make sure that the powerful, big, corrupt Democratic machine will back her all the way. And of course, the Somali community in Minnesota will back her all the way, and then she will appoint Tim Walz to the U.S. Senate to fill her vacant seat should she win the election in November. So call it the Minnesota way. It is a dirty bargain. The question is, will the voters of Minnesota accept it or will they reject it? Now, my question to all of you, should Tim Walz, forget not running for re-election, should Tim Walz be forced to resign? Should he be indicted? Should he go to jail for his clear involvement and complicity in this massive $20 billion and growing fraud scandal? And furthermore, is this just the beginning? Are we just skimming the surface? Is there this kind of fraud of taxpayer dollars and all of these huge social programs? Is it rampant across the entire country? We're seeing it already in Mississippi. Big welfare fraud scandal has been uncovered. At 7:30, I'm going to talk about the latest, what's happening in Massachusetts. You're not going to believe what's been uncovered in the last couple of weeks. California now, people are saying huge amounts of fraud there. We're looking at maybe hundreds of billions of dollars. How big is the problem? And should these politicians go to jail? Aaron, in Idaho, you were making, I thought, a funny point, but a true point, an accurate point, that, the mob that helped build Las Vegas wasn't as corrupt as these Somalis and as these politicians. Aaron, please pick up where you left off.
Well, as you're mentioning, Indian immigrants are productive. Ironically, I'm staying in a hotel that are run by Indian immigrants. Now, I've noticed that the Democrats are nervous as hell this past week. I've never seen them this scared before. Now, here's where I disagree with you. I don't think they're giving Tim Walz that Senate seat. Walz's career is finished because the Democrats are furious at him that they have brought this scandal upon them, and they know it's going to spread like wildfire. You asked if this is the tip of the iceberg. Jeff, we are $38 trillion in debt. The streets should be paved with gold, but our infrastructure is rotting like a stale old cookie. And I've asked this for the last 20 years. With $30 trillion in debt, what's the money worth? Where did the money go? You know what? We're starting to find out. We've been saying for years there's been a lot of conspiracy theories that are coming true. Since Rush Limbaugh's time, we've been saying that there's welfare fraud. Democrats said, that's not true. For years, we've been saying illegal immigrants are getting taxpayer money. That's not true. They've been saying they're voting. That's not true. All of that has come to fruition. I mean, the Democrats do this four-stage thing. Stage one, it's a conspiracy theory. Stage two, maybe it's happening a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Stage three, wait for the blowback to die down. And then stage four, it's happening, and it's a good thing, and it's for your own good. And you just heard Tim Walz say it in real time. There is no Somali fraud. Okay, there is Somali fraud, but it's not a big deal. And then he just goes, you know what? We need more Somalis. He just saw stage 1 through 4 in real time.
Nailed it. Aaron, I swear you absolutely nailed it. Aaron, let me ask you this. Do you think this is going to hurt Democrats politically this year, especially going into the midterm elections? In other words, can Republicans beat the Democrats and win back the governorship in Minnesota? And there's also a Senate campaign as well. In other words, maybe even take a Senate seat. Can the Republicans make political hay out of this?
If the Republicans, they should make political hay out of this, but we know the Republicans are terrible at messaging. I remember Senator Chris Murphy, that psychotic senator, he was on MSNBC 2 years ago, where he said undocumented Americans are his favorite Americans. The guy admitted illegal immigrants are his favorite, even more than American citizens. I said to the Republicans, there's your attack ad. They still don't want to do that. Now, your other question is, will the people of Minnesota finally vote Republican? I don't know, and I'll tell you why, Jeff. Portland, Oregon, which is very close here. And Portland, Oregon is full of homeless people, drugs everywhere, fentanyl everywhere. I remember I saw a local news story where a woman was complaining that homeless people were breaking into her house over and over and over again, and that she said she was angry at the mayor of Portland and she was angry at the Democrats. The reporter flat out asked her, are you going to vote Republican? And she says, oh, I'm never voting for those Nazis. I'm still going to vote for the mayor. Okay, so this woman acknowledges her house has been broken into multiple times by homeless people. She knows it's the Democrats' fault, but she's still going to vote Democrat. So I don't have a whole lot of faith that Minnesota's going to flip blue, or just Portland, Oregon's that far away. But with just one more thing, super fast. It's not just you. The politicians can be cowards. We have a local radio talk show host here in Boise named Nate Shellman. He interviewed two of our congressmen, both of them Republican, during the government shutdown, and he asked a very simple question, which was, hey, are you guys still getting your paychecks during this government shutdown? One congressman said, no, I'm withholding my paycheck, and the other one said, well, yes, of course I'm getting paid. And his follow-up question is, well, why should you get paid while Eric...
Well, the other one doesn't, and he probably didn't like the question. Okay, the Mississippi welfare fraud scandal, just very quick. Apparently 7 of them now have been indicted. According to the auditor, $77 million. $77 million has been stolen. And that's just from 7 people. And that's Mississippi, which is a red state, and they tend to have, better controls down there and better oversight than in these very corrupt blue states, they say, like Minnesota or Illinois or here in Massachusetts or New York or California. Now, this is from 603. You can text the Kuhner man, 70470, 70470. This is a really good point from 603. Jeff, when I watched Nick Shirley's expose, and again, he's the 23-year-old YouTube influencer, all he did was just go to these so-called daycare centers and just knock on the door. And hello, are you a daycare center? And no, they're not daycare centers. So that's it. That's all he did. Anyway, when I watched Nick Shirley's expose, there was one thing I noticed that I haven't heard anyone else pick up on. Every time Nick got someone to open the door to one of these supposed daycares, the video camera, his video camera, could see what's inside. They all had office furnishings, complete with computers, and several quote-unquote staffers walking around inside. We know these people are committing fraud, and they seem to have a lot of time on their hands. What are the odds that they are using these establishments to commit rampant online fraud in addition to the welfare fraud we know they're committing? Essentially, if they're not using these establishments for childcare, what are they using them for? Because I can guarantee you they're being used for something brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Now, here's my guess. It's only a guess. I bet you they're doing work for the Democratic Party. 603 is saying maybe they're doing online fraud, or it's scam upon scam, fraud upon fraud. So who knows? This is, in other words, a massive criminal enterprise. I get it. But if all this money is being stolen, we're talking now tens of billions of dollars, and all underneath the noses of all these Democrat officials and politicians and leaders in Minnesota. I don't think they just want campaign contributions. I don't think they just want some kickbacks. I think the Democrats are saying, look, you guys are making out like bandits and take the money, but you're gonna help us run our political operations. You make sure we never lose an election. So whatever you guys need in terms of whatever help you can do, if we need protests immediately, you organize protests. If we've got to get signs, we get signs. If we've got to mobilize potential voters, if we need you to start helping us with a mail-in balloting or these drop boxes, or in other words, make sure that the political machine is invincible and never loses an election. Because the problem now is that with Waltz falling, this could be the thread that unravels this entire massive criminal conspiracy. That's the problem now. If the DOJ goes in there and breaks this thing wide open, then A, a lot of politicians are going to fall, but B, the massive extent and depth of this criminal fraud and enterprise, this welfare corruption, this out-and-out thievery, this is going to be a massive, massive scandal. And the obvious question is it only in Minnesota? And we're starting to find out, no, it's not. So this could be one of the scandals that topples the Democratic Party. Now, to just, on the local bit, just very quickly, this broke essentially while I was away on vacation. Okay, it's been a couple of weeks now. Here in Massachusetts, 2 Haitians were indicted on a fraud scheme, listen to this, involving food stamps, SNAP benefits, food stamps. And apparently they stole or embezzled $7 million from this fraud scheme that they had, in which they were selling food stamps for cash. Now, here's the kicker. They ran certain stores that were like fronts, but they really weren't selling food. What they did was they stole donated food. You know, let's say at my Stop and Shop, I always donate food, cans or non-perishables, for hungry children or malnourished children or children who are, let's say, food insecure, as they say. Well, what they did was they stole that donated food that's supposed to go to hungry children and then presented that as the food that they have in their stores. And they used that as a front for their criminal enterprise, in which they then sold the food stamps for cash. $7 million and counting. $7 million. So they're even ripping off the food stamps and food that's intended for hungry children. Now, this, again, is just we're just skimming the surface. I'm not talking about illegals that they put up at hotels, give them public housing, free health care, $2,000 a month in cash, food stamps, EBT. I could go on and on. I'm not even talking that. I'm talking now, this is out and out thievery. I mean, they're just stealing now. They're just stealing and embezzling. All, again, under the noses of the Democrats in the state. So I'm telling you, it's happening here. It's happening in Maine. It's happening in Illinois. It's happening in New York. It's happening in California. And the only question now is it $100 billion in total? Is it 150? Is it 200? How much of our taxpayer money have we been flushing down the toilet and allowing these people to rob us blind? 617-266-6868. Eddie in Charlestown. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Eddie.
I'm going to say something, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, because I love you in a non-sexual way. But I am so sick and tired of hearing your program every single morning, and it's not your fault. You're just the messenger, about this abuse, corruption, and nothing's done about it. There's no accountability. There has to be when enough is enough. You keep on saying enough is enough. When's enough enough? Billions and billions of dollars. I'm going to make a prediction right now, Jeff, and I'll bet you a steak dinner at Abe and Louis or wherever you want to go. The Democrats see this blown up in their face. The shutdown is going to be looming in a few weeks or a month or whenever it comes. I'll guarantee you they'll shut this country down as a diversion to get away from the scandal that is happening right now.
Yeah, you're probably right, Eddie. I mean, I can't disagree with you there. Look, there's a certain tipping point where it's up to us, the taxpayers. It's your money. It's my money. It's our money. Look, I'm not complaining. Please don't get me wrong, Eddie. I love to do this show. It is such an honor and a privilege to be behind this microphone. So please don't take this the wrong way. But I got up at 3:00 this morning. I went to bed at 11. I was show prepping. There were reports of firefights and gunfights in downtown Caracas near the presidential palace. Long story short, I was monitoring events thinking, man, is there a coup d'etat? What's going on? So I had to follow events to make sure I was ready for the show if it was actually true. Anyway, it looks like it may have been much ado about nothing. But my point is, I'm functioning on 4 hours sleep. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining. I get up literally in the middle of the night. I drive to work in the dark. I work hard for my money. You work hard for your money. This audience works hard for their money. And we pay a lot in taxes. We pay through the nose in taxes. And now I find out that they're stealing our money? Now, honestly, by the grace of God, there go I. We want to help children with who are autistic. Great. I'm happy to do it. School lunch programs for kids who are low income or what they call food insecure. In other words, hungry kids or poor kids. God bless you. I'm more than happy to do that. But I don't get up at 3:00 in the morning and function on 4 hours sleep day in and day out in order to make Somali illegal aliens rich. I'm sorry. I'm not a sucker. 617-266-6868. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. The reason why I'm saying this, so remember we were talking about fraud. It's much bigger than just Minnesota. It's in other states. And so I said, well, look, you throw in Massachusetts, Maine, where there's a lot of fraud now with the Somali community over there. But you look at California, Chicago, obviously, Illinois, the state of New York. You're looking at maybe 100, 150, $200 billion. That, this is every year. That this is one of the biggest scandals in American history. Whoa, was I naive? Listen now to this. According to Elon Musk, here is what he wrote on X just recently. Quote, the fraud in California, New York, and Illinois is far greater than in Minnesota. My guess, now listen to this, get a hold of yourself. This is what I mean when I say, man, am I naive? My guess for how much fraud is happening nationwide is roughly 10% of the federal budget. So about $700 billion per year. OMG. 700 billion a year? Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. If this is, and I believe him, I mean, he's Mr. Doge. If anybody knows the extent of the fraud, it would be Elon. If this is anywhere close to the truth, A, we're going bankrupt. I mean, no country can survive this amount of fraud. And B, this is one of the greatest scandals in the history of the United States. This is a scandal you can't avoid. You can't turn a blind eye to this. You can't turn away from this. And now, by the way, now you know why we're $38 trillion or whatever it is, $38 trillion in debt. We're all paying taxes up the wazoo. And still, the roads are dilapidated. The bridges are crumbling. We have old hospitals, old schools. Our infrastructure is decaying. And we keep asking ourselves, where the hell is all the money gone? And we have, homeless people and homeless encampments and veterans sleeping in cardboard boxes. And I could go on and on. Well, the answer is now obvious. when $700 billion a year is getting stolen. There's no money left for the roads or the bridges or the infrastructure or the schools or the hospitals or the vets or whatever. Trump has to get all over this. By the way, you want to regain the initiative? You want to win the midterms? This is it. They've given you the midterms on a silver platter. Crack Minnesota open like an egg. Come in there, arrest Tim Walz, expose all of that fraud, and then come right here to Massachusetts, go to California, go to New York, go to Illinois. I mean, just expose all of this to the American people and say, is this what you want to be working for? Is this what you get up for every morning and bust your rear end and sit in traffic and work 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day? Work yourself to the bone so people can screw us and steal our welfare, steal public housing, steal food stamps, steal money for lunches for poor kids, steal you name it, for autistic kids. Is this what you're working for? So our taxpayer dollars can be ripped off and stolen? This is supposed to go to the needy and the vulnerable and the poor, and instead it's lining people's pockets. A bunch of grifters and con men and these rip-off artists, all with the full knowledge and connivance and complicity of the Democratic Party. Because you buy votes to win elections. That's the key now. And look, let's put our cards on the table. If no one else has the guts to say it, let's say it. Okay? I'm going to say it. Why have the Democrats flooded our country with 30 to 35 to 40 million illegals? Why did Biden allow 20 million unvetted illegal aliens to invade our country? Because it was their model for political power. You flood the country with illegal aliens, you put them all on welfare, which is illegal. You buy them all off, and then you make sure they start to vote. And what you've now done is you've imported a massive voting bloc that will now be loyal to the Democratic Party forever. You own them. And then by doing this, here, let's look at Minnesota. It used to be primarily Nordic German. You know, hell, the football team is called the Minnesota Vikings. Why? Because there's a lot of Swedes that used to, immigrated there, and Finns and Scandinavians and Norwegians and Germans. Now it's being taken over by Somalians. And they've transformed Minnesota. And now there is so much freaking fraud that almost every aspect, every government agency has been co-opted and compromised. But I'll tell you this, the Somalis vote 99.999% Democrat. The illegals vote, it doesn't matter. They're all voting. Many times, multiple times over. So you import a massive voting bloc, and this is how you create a one-party state and eventually a one-party supermajority regime that will control and dominate the United States. That's what this is all about. Now, if you've got to pillage and plunder and steal and rob from the taxpayers to do it, who cares? Because for the Democrats, their ultimate goal is power. Absolute power, one-party rule forever. Now, if I'm President Trump, $700 billion a year. That means we don't have to run a budget. There's no budget deficits. We can run a balanced budget. That means we can have roads paved with gold. We can have the best roads in the world, the best infrastructure in the world. We could literally eliminate poverty in the United States. We could feed every hungry child. We could house every homeless person. 700 just in theft alone. Never mind if you get rid of the illegals and don't put them on the dole. We could save trillions of dollars every single year. This is it. This is all you've got to do. If you do these two things, get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse, and deport the illegals and make sure they're no longer on welfare, draining our social welfare system. That's it. You fixed everything. The budget get balanced. The roads get paved. There's money for schools, hospitals, infrastructure, bridges. We can take care of our veterans. We can take care of the poor. There's nothing we can't do. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Anthony in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Thank you for having me, as always, Jeff. Happy New Year to you and your staff.
Happy New Year. All the best to you and your family, Anthony.
I don't know what to do, Jeff. I could be the next Nick Shirley, but I don't want the death threats. I have to work in the town of Lawrence. I don't know how many years I've been calling your show, telling you about what's going on with the Dominican population. There's 9 shipping companies in the town of Lawrence right now working 6 days a week, and they're pillaging all of our food bank foods, and they're shipping it back to the island. I've reached out to the White House. They tell me to call the police if I suspect fraud. I've reached out to independent reporters like Anthony Rubin. He even came out to Lawrence, sent a couple of reporters out with me, and they just don't want to touch it because it's food. I don't know where to turn to get this story out, but there's shipping, there's 55-gallon plastic drums in front of 75% of the bodegas that they use to ship our stuff to the Dominican Republic. And I'm at wit's ends. Where do you suggest that I turn? I even sent you the pictures on Messenger. I don't know if you get them or not. Maybe you're not allowed to watch the videos. I don't know. But I've sent you the pictures, and I don't know what to do. It's killing me, like this guy that was in Minnesota, that he had to witness these daycare centers every single day with no children lined up out front. I've been witnessing this for the past 10 years that I've been working in this town, where they're raping and pillaging my tax dollars. Even though I don't live in Massachusetts, they take money out of my check every single week because I work there. And I got nowhere to turn. Who am I going to tell? Maura Healey? She'll laugh at me. Who do I turn to?
Anthony, here's my advice. Contact Lonnie Brennan at the Boston Broadside. He's a dear friend of mine. He's the publisher. He's the editor-in-chief. Tell him you spoke to me. Tell him you spoke to me on the air. Tell him that I urged you to contact him. He probably even knows because he usually listens to the show. But if he's not listening now for whatever reason, he's in the shower or whatever it is, just contact him and he will do a story. I'm positive he will do a story on it. He will probably go to where you want him to go. He will record everything. And then once we get something in print, then we can drive it really hard on social media. So he'll do a story, probably do a video as well, and then we can start exposing this. Because you're right, it's rampant. What you're talking about is rampant, but the fraud in general, in Massachusetts, frankly, in New Hampshire, although not as bad, in Maine, in Rhode Island, in Connecticut, all across New England, it is rampant. Now, Elon's right, because of sheer population, sheer numbers. You know, the 3 big ones are California, New York, and Illinois. That's why he's saying this is $700 billion. This is a ton of money every year. Every year, $700 billion. But we're being robbed. They're stealing from us. That's what this is. This is theft. And all done with the compliance and with the complicity of the Democratic Party. Maura Healey knows. She doesn't care. You know, Michelle Wu knows. She doesn't care. Kim Driscoll, the lieutenant governor, knows. She doesn't care. I mean, that this state is so corrupt, it's not even funny. So, no, and Anthony, look, to me, this is the principle of the matter. This is biblical. We're talking the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. It's that simple. And we've imported people to come into our country who are literally stealing from us. Now, forget the crimes, forget the rapes and the murders and the gangs and the drugs and all of that. It's just naked theft. They're like highway bandits. Why are we letting them in? And notice they concentrate primarily in blue states. Why is that? Because they're being welcomed in by Democrats. Because they know you let them in and you let them take the welfare and you let them steal all these social programs. You let them steal all of this money, or as you're exposing, take all of this food that's supposed to go for hungry Americans and just send it back to the old country. And I'm sure they're getting cash on the barrel. So whatever, you take $100 worth of food stamps, you load it up with food, and they give you $50 in exchange. So whatever they're making per barrel, and they send it back to the old country. Meanwhile, you've got, black kids, Latino kids, poor white kids, especially in Appalachia, who are going to bed hungry at night. And, I got, Anthony, I promise I'll come right back to you. How do I say this? They're not robbing from the rich. You should never rob from anybody. Please, don't get me wrong. But they're not robbing from the 1%. How do you rob from hungry, poor children? Like they did, for example, in Minnesota. How do you do that? They need those school lunch programs, and you're stealing from poor, hungry children? How do you steal from autistic kids? How do you do that? Like, really, I know Somalia is a vicious place, and I know it's brutal, and I know it's savage, and I know it's dog eat dog. I get it. It's one of the most wretched, godforsaken places on the face of the earth. It's, the law of the jungle. But still, you're going to steal from hungry, starving kids? I mean, you're sick. You're sick. And Tim Walz does nothing. In fact, is encouraging it. And the Democrats are encouraging it. Here, they're encouraging it. Honestly, I don't know how these people sleep at night. I always say this. Have you no fear of God? Like, don't you realize in the end, when you pass away, you'll meet your maker and there will be a judgment on your life? Like, no? You have no fear of God? Are you that morally bankrupt? Are you that irresponsible? Are you that stupid? Anyway, Anthony, I got to ask you, do you think Elon is right? Do you think the number is that astronomically high? $700 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse just from stealing our welfare social programs every year? I mean, do you think Elon has nailed it, or do you think this number is way too high?
I think it's a little bit low because honestly, Jeff, I've been doing this job for 11 years. 12 years. I've been delivering pharmacy meds to this community. And let me tell you something. They're not. I had to hear that my whole entire life, that they're not eligible to be on welfare. They're not eligible to be on Medicare. They're not eligible for free health care. When I show up and I deliver it to them, and when I have to ask for an ID for a controlled substance, it's a Dominican driver's license that I got. And I've been delivering to this person for 10 years straight, and they always show me the Dominican license, so they don't even have the paperwork to give me to get their medicine properly. So I see the fraud firsthand, and I deliver $10,000 a day worth of medicine easy, and that's a low-ball estimate, and I've been doing it 6 days a week because I have so many bills and I wouldn't steal from the community like these people do. But Jeff, this is the part of the problem is these people, like you said, the guilt. These people feel entitled. They don't see it as them stealing. They see it as the dumb Americans are giving me all this free food. Jeff, the YMCA drives the truck right up to their building. They don't even have to go to a food bank. It's delivered right to them. And then they collect it. I'm talking about the poorest of the poor people living in elderly housing, and they open up the door to get their medicine, and I look through the door, and there's a big box being filled up with the food. And then the next week, there's the shipping company taping up that box and throwing it on the back of the truck. Some of it's so brazen, they're shipping oil to the country, okay? Just send them the money, and then they would be able to buy it for themselves for cheaper. But if you get it for free, it doesn't cost you anything. The shipping's a little bit more reasonable. It's just baffling.
Anthony, look, I've got to ask you this. The Republican Party in Massachusetts, okay, this is a scandal. Look, Waltz had to, not run for re-election. Republicans, at least the polls show they're gaining now in Minnesota. The Republicans in Minnesota are pouncing all over this. This is a massive political loser for Democrats. I don't care. Moderate, left, right, center. No one wants to see their taxpayer money being stolen like this. No one likes getting ripped off like this. Where is the Massachusetts Republican Party? How come they don't care? If they would just spotlight this issue alone, they could run Healy out of the governor's, they could run her out of the governorship on a rail. They could run Michelle Wu out of Boston. Yet instead, they say nothing, they do nothing. It's like they don't care. Why don't they care, Anthony? I'm just curious.
Yes, they are scared of being put in a bad light, and they don't fight, which is why I unenroll right after I vote up here in New Hampshire. The second I cast my ballot, I go right up back to that table because I don't have anybody else to vote for. I would have to be dead to vote Democrat because I know what they're doing. But the Republican Party is a joke. It's full of rhinos. It's full of people that are just too scared of their image. And then when you do have somebody that will stand up and fight, like up here we had this girl, Emily Phillips. She was running for office. We had Caroline Levitt. She was running for office. They lose to the biggest Democrats on the face of the planet because they fight, but nobody backs them from behind. The feckless Republicans that are in office.
No, you're right. No, the Republican Party, the establishment, always shanks them in the back. I just find it incredible. That's why Republicans don't win, because they're constantly being stabbed in the back by their own. Okay, I'm not making this up. This is not a joke. This is not something from The Onion or a spoof or anything. The Democrat Party, through the DNC, officially sent out something on social media to Tim Tampon Waltz. Thank you for your service, Governor. I swear to you. No. Thank you. Tim, thank you. Ay. Okay, so it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Who is the real culprit behind the Minnesota fraud scandal? A, Somalis. B, Democrats. In other words, who do you think is ultimately really to blame for the massive $20 billion and counting fraud scandal in Minnesota? Is it A, the fraudsters in the Somalian community? Or B, well, people like Tampon Tim and the Democrats who have run that state? You can vote By the way, I wish there was a C because I would say both. But honestly, if I was voting, I would probably go B. Not that there isn't a lot of corruption and fraud in the Somali community. Of course there is. But who allowed it to happen? Who enabled it? Who empowered it? Who in many ways encouraged it? It was the Democrats. So that's why, to me, I would put them a little bit more in terms of a culprit, a little higher on the scale than I would the Somalians. But that's me. Anyway, A, Somalis, B, Democrats. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner. You can also vote via X, and man, was the Kuhner Man active last night on X. You can follow me there. My handle, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in national ER. Okay, very, very quickly. Many of you are texting the Kuhner Man making this point. Let me just read this from 781. Jeff, now you know why the Democrats on Beacon Hill are fighting tooth and nail to prevent the state audit from taking place. Bingo. It's obvious. Over 70% of voters in the last election on a ballot question voted. It was Republicans, Independents, Democrats, over 70% voted for a kind of Massachusetts or state version of Doge to have a thorough audit of the budget and the spending that takes place up on Beacon Hill in the state legislature. Where is our money going? We just want a person to come in there, the state auditor, and just let's open up the books. And up to now, illegally, unconstitutionally, undemocratically, they are blocking that audit. Healy's blocking it. The Attorney General's blocking it. Obviously, the Democrats, those crooks up on Beacon Hill, are blocking it. And I think it's pretty obvious. You open up those books, Massachusetts becomes another Minnesota. The same fraud that we're watching in Minnesota is going to be uncovered here. The only question is it less than 20 billion or more than 20 billion? But believe me, it's going to be billions and billions and billions. And the Democrats know that if this information gets out politically, they are going to be destroyed. And so that's why they are stonewalling the audit, and you will never see that audit. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Jay on the South Shore. Thanks for holding, Jay, and welcome.
Jeffrey, Happy New Year, brother.
Happy New Year. All the best to you and your family, Jay. What do you make of all this, my friend?
We all know they're all scammers. They're all ripping us off. Maura Healey's just as complicit. They enable everything. And one thing, I don't know if you talked about it, but right before the first, I don't know if you were around town, but Healey came out and now she creates new rules for who pays income taxes, federal and state. And one of the biggest scams going in Minnesota is this home health care scam. I'll take care of your mother, you take care of mine. Import the father-in-law, the nephews and nieces, and they all collect money to do nothing. And now what Healey just did a couple weeks ago is she came out and said, hey, for all these home health care rates that are making so much sacrifice, not only can you take care of your in-laws, but you don't pay state or federal income taxes anymore. And I'll tell you, Jeff, I'm witnessing it firsthand in my building between the minivan scams with all the Haitian drivers scamming us and now the home health care. We got a couple companies in my building. No one speaks English. They're all wearing brand new clothes, driving new cars. I mean, come on. How much do these people make? $20 an hour? So they're all in on it. They're scamming us. They're all getting rich. And just look at, like, Ayanna Presley's husband gets $250 million to build housing in the city of Boston. And then miraculously, you never hear from her again. They're all ripping us off. And
Jay, can you please hang on? We're up against it. Okay, let's go right back to Jay on the South Shore. He was on fire before we had to go go up for a break. Okay, Jay, I want to ask you this. You mentioned that you live in a building. There's a lot of illegals. They are involved in obviously all kinds of scams and frauds. So is it now that they bring in family members to take care, allegedly, of ailing, say, father-in-laws, mother-in-laws, and so this way they're allowed to come into the United States, into Massachusetts, and then what? It's called home care. And then what? Are we paying for their family members to take care of, say, an ailing mother-in-law or father-in-law? Is that the scam, Jay?
Yeah, so just to clarify, it's not in the building that I live. It's in the building that I work in.
Forgive me. Okay.
And it's infuriating because we've been watching this going on for years. It's these little minivan school buses that are ripping all around town, like billing towns like $100 a mile and all this scam. None of them are owned by Americans. The other thing we got going on is we got a couple home health care companies in the building. No one speaks English. They all drive brand new RAV4s and Escalades, and it's just incredible. And yes, Maura Healey, and I don't know all the details, but what I did read, and typical mass politician puts it out there 4:59 Friday night before a long weekend. Basically, if you are providing home health care to a family member, as long as you don't reside at that residence, you can get paid by the state, and starting January 1st, because it's such a burden to these poor folks, they no longer have to pay state or federal income.
Please don't swear. Say crap or whatever. Please don't swear. Yeah, you can say whatever you want, but just don't swear because I don't want to get a fine. But yeah, go ahead. In other words, you and I working hard means nothing to anybody. Please keep going, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm self-employed. I don't know about all your self-employed listeners. We basically give up half everything we make between double Social Security, state, federal, add it all up. If you make a decent living, you're giving up half you pay. And then you're paying, 8, 9, 10 grand a year for real estate taxes, $2,000 for water and sewer, $1,000 for trash. Every time you turn around, they get your hand in your pocket. And now the good one is, look at your Eversource bill. You're paying for the lowlights. It's called the benefits charge. And 21% added to my bill this month. So we're getting ripped off. Everybody knows it. And nobody has the courage to say or do anything. And it goes right down to all of them. Ayanna Pressley, Maura Healey, her girlfriend, once she becomes governor, gets a job paying like $450 grand with no skills. It's everywhere. And what's infuriating is the arrogance of these people, and they just feel entitled to it. It's incredible. I don't know what the cure is, but until somebody straps on a set and does something about it, they're just laughing in our face and they're ripping us off. It's that simple. I see it every day.
Well, Jay, the most infuriating part of all, you're completely right, by the way, absolutely, 1,000%. But the most infuriating part of all is that, if we had an honest, real Republican Party, I mean, the Democrats are ripe for the picking. They're ripe for the taking. They've become so arrogant. You're right. They're brazen now. They're in our face. They're so full of, drunk with power and so full of hubris that they feel entitled to all of this. Yet you have a very corrupt Republican Party, let's be very clear, and some media personalities, and everybody knows who they are, that are taking money. And they're taking money to lose. They're taking money to make sure that the Democrats keep winning. Because their goal is to always tear down anytime you put up a Republican that has, any chance of winning or is willing to fight the Democrats, then they will stab that person in the back over and over and over again. And so to me, we can't fix this state until we fix the Republican Party. Once you have a real opposition party that is serious about winning, that is not financially and morally compromised and corrupt, and that is willing to do what it takes to win, i.e. speak the truth and really expose all of this corruption and abuse of power, it's just going to keep going on. This is what we need, to have a competitive two-party system in Massachusetts. This, it's a one-party regime, and this is what happens when you have one-party rule. It's corruption upon corruption upon corruption. Jay, dynamite call. Thank you so much for that call. Agree, disagree. David on the Cape. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Jeff, going back in 2017, so you're talking 9 years ago, you can look it up online, the testimony of Scott Stillman. He's a forensic fraud investigator. Was talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars of Somali fraud in Minnesota, and they were tracing it, the money going to compounds in overseas. So money was being sent to terrorist compounds, Al-Shabaab, going to Dubai. The money was being transferred from one account to another, so it was impossible to find money laundering. We're talking now 9 years ago that he testified on this. That had been going on prior to that. This has been going on for a long, long period of time. So now we're possibly talking about foreign intervention, foreign agents involved in funding terrorist groups. And then you've got Tampon Tim running the governorship there, and Amy Klobuchar was talking about him being senator. Please, Amy, please put him as senator. I'd like to see that. That would be really good, because this is reaching a point of absurdity. Elon Musk, you're talking about the man who's talking about going to Mars, who's developed the Tesla, who's developed the SpaceX, who's an expert in math. Is there any chance that he'd be wrong mathematically on the amount of fraud? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, Jeff. And it's good that you're exposing this, Jeff. You're talking about it, but this has been going on for a long time. Anybody can look up the video, his testimony of Scott Stillman. I ask you folks to look it up even right now. Remember the guy's name, Scott Stillman. He was a forensic fraud investigator, exposed this in 2017. And Minnesota prevented him, the government of Minnesota preventing him from tracking and exposing other elements of, because it was leading right back to Minnesota. This is massive. This is huge. That's why you've got problems here. That's why, like you said, Jeff, they don't want the audit here in Massachusetts. It's massive.
Oh, the audit will destroy them. You're dead on, David. Look, the audit will destroy them. Maura Healey will go the way of Tim Walz. There's no question. Any kind of a semi-competent, semi-honest audit, and it's over. It's game, set, and match. So you're completely right. No, and the other thing, and I can just add to what you're saying, because you're completely right, David. So all I can just do is piggyback. This is the other thing that I can't wrap my mind around. It's the level of the corruption. It's the amount of money now. We're talking just in Minnesota alone, minimum $20 billion. Elon says $700 billion with a B every year, if you add into big states like California, New York, and Illinois. I mean, that's destroying us. That's an obscene amount of money. It's almost incomprehensible. But then you have on tape, it's on tape, Ilhan Omar in front of a crowd of Somali Americans or whatever, Americans of Somali descent or illegal aliens, saying that I am a, quote, sister and daughter of Somalia, and that in Congress I will do everything in my power to advance the interests of Somalia and the Somalian people. She's openly admitting that her allegiance is not to the United States, but to the Somali regime. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I just want to read this text. It's fascinating. I don't know if I completely agree with it, but it's certainly very interesting. And it's actually funny as well. Anyway, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. And this is from 617. Jeff, we really underestimate this creepy bastard that is Tim Walz. Everyone sees the bumbling idiot who puts tampons in boys' bathrooms and acts like a folksy coach. But behind that mask is a straight-up mafia capo who orchestrated the biggest Somali pirate and election fraud operation in American history. And let's not forget how the one Democrat who dared to vote against his health care slush fund for illegals mysteriously ended up murdered. This guy is not Tampon Tim. He's Al Tamponi. If you remember, this was a while back, but Melissa Hortman, remember she was a state rep? She was the only Democrat to vote against her party when she voted against giving health care funds to illegal aliens in Minnesota. And 4 days after she cast that vote, she was assassinated. Now, I don't know, I'm not saying Tim Walz had anything to do with that, obviously, but it's suspicious, obviously. It does raise some questions. But look, the point I think that 617 is making is, yeah, he's a clown. Yeah, he's a buffoon in some ways. But listen, make no mistake about it. He put together a voter fraud machine in Minnesota. He allowed the Somalis, to be pirates, in which they just pillaged and plundered the American taxpayer and basically turned Minnesota into a monolithic, one-party Democrat regime. And he's willing to crush and destroy all opposition who stands in his way. And obviously fully backed by communist China. In other words, Minnesota under Walz turned into a mafia state. Just like I believe, by the way, that California is essentially now a mafia state. I think Massachusetts is, for all intents and purposes, a political mafia state. And so, in other words, don't underestimate Tampon Tim or Al Tamponi, as 617 likes to call him. This guy may have another political life left in him. If Amy Klobuchar pulls off an election victory to be the next governor, it looks like she may appoint Tampon Tim or Al Tamponi to the Senate at least until 2030. So this guy may not be going anywhere. So we'll see. I hope this is the end of him. He deserves to be put behind bars. He deserves to be forced out of the governor's office. He deserves to resign in shame for everything that he's done. But these are Democrats. When do they ever get arrested? And when are they ever held accountable? 617-266-6868 is the number. John in Dunstable. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Happy New Year to you and everybody at Kuhner Country and your family.
Thank you. All the best to you and your family. Happy New Year, John.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, Jeff. I was going to start out with the mass audit, but you already took care of that. But let's look at the big picture of everything here. Elon Omar was worth $65,000, but you and I get $65,000. But now she's worth $35 million, and she's still in office, Jeff. Okay? The New York governor that we got now took his oath on the Koran. Or mayor, whatever he is.
He's mayor.
Yeah, mayor. Okay. All right. Democrats and Republicans are both corrupt, Jeff. 90% of them to the core. And they're not doing this to make the Somalis rich. They're making themselves rich, Jeff. They're not... Waltz wasn't doing all this just for the Somalis. Believe me when I tell you, if President Trump does what he's supposed to, what I think he's doing to expose these people, you're gonna find out, Jeff, and we're all gonna find out the money that they've stolen from us. If you go to the bank, Jeff, or if I go to the bank and want to deposit or take out $3,000 in cash, do you know who gets notified, Jeff? The Internal Revenue Service. My bank told me, because I do some things in my business. I want to use cash, and they told me if you do that, we got to notify the IRS. Certain amount of money. These people are worth millions of dollars, Jeff. Our government already knows what they're doing. It would take a week or two to go through every politician's bank account. Anybody that has more than their salary, 100% deposit of their salary in their account, Jeff, is dirty. They're there to serve the people, Jeff. They should all be investigated like President Trump was, brought through the ringer. And we would find out that the majority of them on both sides are dirty, Jeff. And I hope President Trump exposes this corruption real soon, Jeff, because I got a sneaky feeling that they're going to do whatever they have to do, the corrupt politicians, and they get away with murder, Jeff. You and I both know that. Actual murder. And if they get away with what they're doing, our country is done, Jeff. This country will never, if they get in again, Jeff, before the arrests that should be made, this country is done, Jeff. You'll be done, I'll be done, all real Americans will be done. And
well, John, look, this is now what we're facing. Okay, this is what the Minnesota Somali fraud scandal has exposed. And if Elon Musk is correct, and I believe he is, then we're not talking 20 billion, we're talking 700 billion. Now, I'm telling you that's unsustainable. To put it in as simply and as concisely as I can possibly put it, we are the most corrupt country in the history of the world. You can't be plundering 700 billion every year. You can't. I mean, you can't. I mean, I'm telling you that the Russians are looking on in absolute envy. The Ukrainians are looking on like, really? Yuri, pesty vodka. Holy mackerel. I thought we were corrupt. You got to see what's going on in America. So, I mean, really, you're $700 billion a year. Look, in Ukraine or Russia, if you're stealing 30, 40, 50, 60 billion dollars, that's a lot of money. I'm talking the country as a whole. 500 million here, 200 million there, 400 million there. Okay, these are powerful oligarchs, but $700 billion, it's going to crush us. It's going to bankrupt us. No country can sustain this. And to me, this is an inevitable result of two things. All of the illegals that we allowed to pour into our country, number one, and number two, the Democratic Party doing everything in their power to make welfare as easily accessible and to allow welfare fraud to spread like a cancer. So it's like speed, it's like whiskey and speed. Okay, driving fast. You put the two of them together, it's a lethal combination. You put in massive illegals coming in unvetted, combined with the Democratic Party with trillions of dollars sloshing around. You're begging for trouble. You're asking for trouble. And that's now what they've done. Now, if Trump doesn't run on this, if Trump doesn't expose this, then I don't know what to tell you. If the Republicans don't run on this, then we might as well not have a Republican Party. Because the taxpayer is being raped. We're being raped. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's what this is. And again, I'm talking not a one-time 700 billion. I'm talking every year, 700 billion, 700 billion, 700 billion. I mean, that's 1.4 trillion, 2.1 trillion, 2.8 trillion, 3.5 trillion. I mean, do you know what we could do with that kind of money? We'd have no problems. And instead, we're running what? 1.5, $2 trillion deficits every year? We got a $38 trillion debt. We've got a massive third world foreign illegal population festering in the United States, overrunning our schools, our hospitals, our emergency rooms, our cities. I mean, And when you mention all this, because these are all facts, it's all undeniable. By the way, this is not even conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, right, left. This is basic mathematics. After a while, you go broke. I don't care how wealthy you are. You can't keep wasting 700. You can't keep allowing people to steal $700 billion. Like, it's like a company. If you keep allowing your employees to keep stealing and stealing and stealing and stealing and embezzling and siphoning off, the company's going to go broke. Period. Kaput. It's over. So, and by the way, politically, this is a gift from the gods, from the political gods. So, look, I know Trump has already eviscerated Waltz. He's got to expand this now and just take on the Democratic Party. They own this, wrap it around their neck, and let the American people see what's happening to their hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And let me just say this, final word, because I want to go back to the phone lines. This is why I'm a conservative. This is why I've always been a conservative. Because Ronald Reagan predicted this. This is something that conservatives have been talking about for decades. This is why you never allow, this goes back to our founding fathers. They predicted all this because this is like the Roman Empire. This kind of wild corruption, rampant greed, excessive spending and bureaucracy, this kind of bloat and fat and out theft and thievery. The founding fathers said, keep government limited, keep it small, because it'll breed massive corruption and parasites and leeches, and eventually will devour our republic. That government should always be the last resort, never the first resort. And that's why I'm a conservative, and I've always been a conservative. Government governs best that governs least. Look, let me ask you this. What has government done ever that's actually worked and been effective? Like, really, think about anything out there. What has the government, when the government runs something, is it better or worse than the private sector? Not that the private sector is perfect. There's problems, there's abuses, mistakes, flaws, corruption, because we're born with original sin. So businesses, corporations, whatever, it's composed of people. Some people are good, some people are bad. So yeah, you have to have certain regulations, of course, and standards. But overall, ask yourself, when has the government done anything better than the private sector? And why do we give so much power to politicians? You see, the biggest weapon they have is our purse. It's our money. We call it taxes. That's not taxes. That's the sweat off of our brow. I pay in total about 50% of all my income in taxes. Okay? Ballpark, give or take. About 50, maybe slightly over 50. Federal taxes, state taxes, local taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, whatever, everything. Okay, all of the taxes. I pay about 50%, half. Let me tell you what that means in practical terms. Until July, I'm working for the government. For the first 6 to 7 months of the year, my money is going to the federal government. The government is claiming and taking half of my money, my hard-earned money, your hard-earned money. Half. Even under feudalism, the Lord only got, the feudal Lord, okay, only got 1/7 of your labor. 1/7. Not 50%, not half. Now, we're all slowly becoming serfs. Tax serfs. And I'm fine now. Okay, if I'm going to be paying for roads and bridges and taking care of the needy and the poor and schools and autistic kids and giving school lunch programs, okay, I'm willing. I have a heart. Okay, I want to help the needy. Of course I do. But whoa. To have politicians line their pockets and steal from me? So what? I'm working so Elizabeth Warren can be worth north of $50 million? I'm working so Joe Biden can be worth nearly $1 billion? So I'm working to make politicians rich? You see, if you don't have big government, then you don't have big taxes. If you don't have big taxes, the politicians can't get rich. The only way they get rich is if you allow government to get involved in every aspect of our lives. That's the problem. We've created now a federal leviathan, a massive big government nanny state. And we're not just are we losing our freedoms and our liberties, which to me is the most important, but we're losing our money. We're losing, that's the sweat off our brow. It's your labor. Remember, you're getting up at 3, 4 in the morning. You're driving in the middle of the night, in the dark. You're battling traffic. You're working hard all day. You come back. Your day is gone. And half of that goes to the government? And then you find out most of what's going to the government is so Somali illegals can be stealing from you and they can be driving around in a Cadillac and living in a luxurious condo and traveling back and forth all over the world, or sending the money back to terrorists? Or you've got these 2 Haitians, as an example, stealing food stamp money so they can live high on the hog? Like, I'm sorry, that's not what I'm working for. Is that what you're working for? We're being victimized. We're being exploited. We're being fleeced. To put it bluntly, we're being screwed. It's our money. It's not their money. We work for our money. They live off our money. We pay their salaries. So why is it always one way? They act like they own us. We own them. So, no, I'm sorry. To me, this is my red line. I want Tim Walz in jail. I want these politicians now to go to jail. If you're going to allow $700 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse, and naked stealing and corruption of public funds and social welfare programs, then you're going to go to jail. Blank you. Listen, if they were stealing money, if I was or the team was stealing money from WRKO and lining their pockets, I'd go to jail, they'd go to jail. How come politicians are any different? I just find it incredible. Like what? Somehow, what? They're immune? What? They're the new aristocratic class? What are they? The new political lords? The law doesn't apply to them? What? They're our masters now? They're our overclass, our overlords? And that's why, frankly, I'm being brutally honest now. That's why I voted for Trump. I want someone to drain the swamp. I want to see politicians go to jail who are guilty, who are criminals, who are corrupt. I want them to pay. Because we're becoming now like an Eastern European banana republic. Except the corruption here, I can't believe I'm saying this, is even worse. Russia doesn't steal $700 billion, I'm telling you. Ukraine doesn't steal $700 billion. China doesn't steal $700 billion. Only America you can steal $700 billion. And by the way, I swear to you here, Gavin Newsom, this is the front runner for the Democratic nomination in 2028. Okay, here, because you're not. I'm going to read it to you because you're not going to believe me. Okay, this is Gavin Newsom. Tim Walz is a man of character, strength, and compassion. He has served Minnesota with heart and dignity. Minnesota and America is better off thanks to his lifelong public service. Wishing him all the best in this next chapter. Thank you at Tim Walz. In other words, blank you to us, the taxpayer. So, yeah, you ripped off the taxpayer $20 billion and drove the state into the ground. Destroyed the police, destroyed public safety, made Minnesota and especially Minneapolis, St. Paul uninhabitable. But we love you, Tim. We love you. That's why you never vote for a Democrat. It's like suicide. You vote for a Democrat, you might as well just jump off a cliff. So, Health and Human Services has now confirmed that Somalia's ambassador to the United Nations, and I remember, this is Somalia's guy to the UN, Ambassador Abukar Dahir Osman, okay, the permanent representative of Somalia to the United Nations and president of the Security Council. In fact, listen to this, was involved with a healthcare company in Cincinnati, Ohio. The company was called Progressive Healthcare Services. Apparently, remember Home Health, that fraud? Well, that fraud scheme? Well, he was involved with a healthcare company, Progressive Healthcare Services, a home health agency in Cincinnati, which has now been convicted of Medicaid fraud. They were bilking taxpayers over health care that's supposed to be given to poor Americans, underprivileged, low-income, poor Americans. You can't make this up. Jeff, is he an American citizen? Is he, I don't know, is he, does he have anything to do with the United States? I don't know, does he have a green card? He's literally Somalia's ambassador to the UN. That's it. And even he got in on the fraud and on the action. That's how freaking corrupt Somalia is. The whole government's corrupt. Their UN ambassador's corrupt. The thing is, look, you want to be corrupt in your own country, that's your business. But they're corrupt in our country. And they're fleecing American taxpayers. They're stealing from us. Enough is enough. I mean, like, come on, man. I mean, now you're slapping us in the face. 617-266-6868. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
One little potato before I get to the meat. Anthony cracked me up earlier. When he said he'd have to be dead to vote Democrat, I have a message to Anthony. They're waiting, and they're counting on it. All right. So, Jeff, let's talk about locks. Now, do you remember the old saying, putting a lock on something to keep honest people honest?
Yes.
I'm sure you have.
Yes.
Okay, so now the Democrats, they don't like locks when it comes to being fiduciary with our money that we're forced to pay. We don't pay taxes voluntarily. We go to jail if we don't, right? And also, if someone in a corporation mismanages funds, they go to jail too. They go to jail, no questions asked. Now the Democrats and even some of the corrupt Republicans are all about using locks to use them to make burdensome regulations, like EPA and stuff like that. And what they do is they make money because by using their locks and their advantage, they create unnatural demand for products and services, and then they enrich themselves. Like, remember the Green New Deal? I mean, all the baloney with the solar panels and even the money. Look at the money they just gave out for people to buy electric cars that nobody wants. I mean, but they get rich. They have investments in companies that profit from these regulations, and that's how they get rich. Isn't that true, Jeff? Isn't that what they're doing?
You are not 100, as I like to say, 1,000% correct. And it's boondoggle, public boondoggle, taxpayer funded after public boondoggle. You're right. They sell, they give, they push solar panels that nobody wants. They push these electric vehicles that nobody wants. But Democrat cronies, Democrat donors, those that are politically connected, they make money hand over fist. They get obscenely rich and wealthy. And most of them, not all, but most of them tend to either be uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, and other sons, daughters, people who are family members of the political class. It's cronyism. It's disgusting.
Thank you.
Mark, is there anything else you want to add, my friend?
Oh, no, I wanted to keep it simple. I think if people don't see it, if that's so simple, if people can't see it, then we're lost. I mean, when I was younger, I thought that we're about the same age. When I was a kid and I saw what had happened in our recent history as far as technology and medicine and wars and everything else, I thought that we're going to evolve into a better society and a better everything else, but we're not. We're devolving. We're devolving, and we're gonna crumble just like Rome did, and that's it. Thank you very much, Jeff. Welcome back.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it, because it's the same corruption as Rome, because it's the same temptation as Rome. You see, we forgot the lesson that the founding fathers taught us, which is power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So come on, let's just stand back objectively. If you've got not billions, trillions, and now it's becoming tens of trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars is an unimaginable worth of money. And you can't comprehend what the kind of money $1 trillion is. Never mind trillions upon trillions. You've got trillions of dollars sloshing around in Washington in these massive federal programs. Of course you're going to have massive corruption. It's inevitable. It's just too much temptation. So, it's just that's what's going to happen. And the more money, the more power, the more corruption. All right. So there's an Iranian migrant. Okay. There's an Iranian in California who allegedly owns a daycare. He's got a certificate, apparently stamped by Karen, whatever, the office associated with Karen Bass, the mayor of L.A. He apparently, over the years, has received $42.18 million in government grants to run a daycare center. 42.18, let's forget the 1.8, $42 million. He drives around, the owner drives around in a Rolls Royce. By the way, it's a beautiful car. I mean, he's got the latest. Whoa, you got to see this. He's got, I think, like a $20,000 watch. Anyway, he lives in a mansion, an absolute mansion. There's only one problem. There's no children at his daycare center. And apparently, no children have attended in 9 months. In other words, the daycare center, the whole thing is fake. It's a fraud. It's a front. I don't know what the hell the guy's really running there, if anything, but I'll tell you this, they're not taking care of little munchkins. They're not taking care of the little bambinos, as the Italians say, the little kids. And then when confronted by influencers, the 42 million, where are the kids? Where's the daycare center? Where did the money go? I swear to you, this is how he responds. Puh, puh, puh. Like he starts spitting. I have family. I have wife. I have kids. Like the support. Like you're going to take away my livelihood. as he's getting into his Rolls Royce. Go back to your cockroach office. I don't know, like your small-time office. Leave me alone. So basically, this is what I'm saying. This is not just Minnesota. This is not just the Somali community. Elon Musk is 1,000% correct. 42 million right down a rat hole. Stolen. And that's just one daycare center in California by some immigrant they brought in from Iran. There you go. Do you drive a Rolls Royce? Because I don't drive a Rolls Royce. I'm just curious. I mean, do you live in a mansion? Because I don't live in a mansion. Do you have a $20,000 Rolex? Because I don't have a $20,000 Rolex. And it's all grift, fraud, and out thievery. Now, you start doing this in state after state after state, and I'm telling you, Elon is right. And Anthony may even be more right. Anthony thinks the number is probably closer to $1 trillion every year in waste, fraud, and theft. Just from our social welfare programs alone. Elon says $700 billion. Who knows? But if it's $42 million just for one fake daycare center in California, think about that. They say crime doesn't pay. I disagree. Crime does pay. And man, it pays well. Kathy in Rochester. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Kathy. All the best to you and your family.
All the best to you, too.
May you be as wealthy as the Somalis in Minnesota.
It's amazing because, I live in an area where there's a lot of immigrants, and Americans are just so naive. They think that these are their poor little things. As we say in Portuguese, we call them coitadinhos, which means a poor thing. They're not poor things. They're connivers. They're very conniving. And they come here, and they've got royal chutzpah, and they're going to get everything. And it's so different from years ago. Years ago, the people who came here from other countries as immigrants would have been mortified to take anything free because they had pride. They came to work, and work they did, and many of them made a lot of money. But the people coming over now, from specific countries, they are coming here not to make, but to take. And we are stupid Americans. We really are stupid Americans in so many ways. We sit back and we make up all these excuses for them and justify why it's okay. And, we have to help them. I say round them up and send them back where the hell they came from. If you're not here working, if you're not working on getting your citizenship, you go back. ASAP. And I am 100% for ICE because like you said, Jeff, earlier, we're like serfs. No, this is like the modern day slavery, and that's what we don't realize. We are the slaves. We're working, like you said, paying 50% taxes. And like one of your callers said, take a look at your Eversource bill, everyone. If you have natural gas, take a look at your current charges for gas. They've broken it down. You have your supply, you have the maintenance and infrastructure investment, then you have the public benefits. I paid $80 this past month. 21% of my bill went to public benefits. I don't want to pay public benefits. My question is, where are the lawyers? We have an abundance of lawyers in this state and in this country. Why the hell aren't the lawyers or any politicians helping the taxpayer? No, they're all on the take. And how are they all getting rich? Because they're all on the take. Jeff, I'm going to leave you with this. I don't know if you heard about this, but someone who was in the Maduro regime, he was a narco general, Hugo Carjaval or something. He was confessing and talking about all the different politicians who were getting money from Maduro regime. And, it's just amazing. It's all the people that, the usual suspects. But in this state, it's both Markey and Hiawatha, Lisa Murkowski, Mark Kelly, Ruben Gallego, and then you were talking about in Minnesota, of course, it was Amy Klobuchar. She's on the take, too. So they're all on the take. They're all getting money. They're all getting filthy rich, and we're all working our asses off to pay for their luxurious lifestyle. And I, for one, am sick of it. In 2026, we need to make a change.
Amen. Amen. Kathy, thank you very much for that call. No, to me, that's one of the things that has really been shocking, and now we know why. It's to see how many Democrats calling for, I don't want to get too off topic, but defending Maduro, championing Maduro, calling for Maduro to be released from jail and sent back to govern and rule Venezuela. Like, are you, what? So, in other words, all of you that are holding these, no kings protests, you're actually supporting, forget a king, a brutal mass murdering communist dictator and a drug trafficker and narco terrorist to boot. Not only are you supporting him, but you want to reinstall him back in power? And I think part of it is ideological. I think there's no question. He's a comrade, as Mamdani said. He's a fellow leftist, a fellow Marxist, a fellow socialist. I think there's no question. But I think another big part of it is the kickbacks. The money now that we're seeing so many of our politicians and Democrats and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and that's why they were paid to turn a blind eye and let Maduro stay in power. And just let the drugs and the criminals that he was, pushing into our country, that he released from his prisons and mental asylums and let them pour into our country. That's why they deliberately turned a blind eye. He bought prominent Democrat politicians off. They were on the take. Now, in the old days, if a politician was on the take and they were caught, they go to jail. It was a scandal. Now they go in front of CNN and demand that Maduro be sent back to Venezuela and run the country, continue, repressing that country and running it with an iron fist. So they're openly championing a communist mass murdering dictator. So you support Maduro? Yeah. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Now, I'm telling you, if we're not careful, we're going to be as poor, as impoverished, and as corrupt as Venezuela. You continue to allow $700 billion a year to be stolen, and this kind of rampant corruption, waste, fraud, and abuse, we're going to become the Venezuela of North America. And again, all aided and abetted by the radical left and the Democrats. Mike in Saugus. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Jeff, Happy New Year, you, your family, and the crew, and
Thank
all
you.
the patriots out there.
Thank you, Mike. God
The
bless
last
you,
lady-
and Happy New Year to you and your family.
The last lady that was on, she stole my thunder. I am so sick and tired of these people in these Democratic-run states. We have so much corruption right here in Massachusetts. We have the worst politicians ever in the history of Massachusetts. And the people sit back and they say nothing, they do nothing. We need a big rally in the springtime at the State House and put these people in their place, expose them for what they are.
Mike, we may have to do a big rally for the audit. We have to force the politicians to abide by the will of the people. Stan in Lynn. Thanks for holding, Stan, and welcome.
Yes.
Hi, Stan.
You know what it is? Until they do a Doge-type audit of all these NGOs, nobody's going to jail. You know, the one guy had a good thing. He said it's not the national debt. It's the national fraud. I really picked up on that. But unless they go in there, and they should give incentives. These IRS, give them incentives to find out. The more they find out, give them a percentage of what they're stealing. Until they do this, nobody's going to jail.
Well, Stan, let me ask you, because I think you're right. Look, we've got to expose and break this completely wide open. How do we break this logjam? Just let's take Massachusetts for a second. The people voted overwhelmingly, over 72% of voters. It was Democrats, Republicans, independents. It didn't matter. All of them, the overwhelming majority. We want an audit of the government spending at the state legislature. Where is our taxpayer money going? Who's receiving it? How's it being spent? And they refuse to abide by the results of the election. And the governor is closing ranks, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, obviously the crooks on Beacon Hill because they're trying to cover up their crimes and their corruption. They're all closing ranks. The media is protecting them. The Boston Globe, the Boston Herald, I could go on and on. Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 10, Channel 25. Nobody has the guts to stand up to these people. So all we want is an audit. We did it the democratic way, properly, peacefully, civilly. We won. We won by flying colors. Yet now they won't abide by the election results. So what do we do here? Because we know why they're hiding. We know why they don't want the audit. We know why they're hiding the money. Because we're going to find Minnesota-level style fraud and corruption. We know that. So how do we get them to open up the books? What do we need to do as citizens to finally do what you're recommending that we do, which is to find out where is all this money going, and to the NGOs and to all these agencies, so that we know how our money is being spent, and frankly, how much of it is being stolen, wasted, and abused. So what do we do, Stan? As citizens, we're not terrorists. We're not violent people. You won't accept the results of the election. So what do we do next, Stan? What's our recourse?
So that's the main problem you got is how do you do it legally? Until you get into these NGOs and find out who's running them, who's working for them, where the money's going, how the money is getting dispersed, I understand what you're saying. I don't know how legally we can do it. They voted to get it done, but we're not able to get it done. But just like in Minnesota, they've got Tim Walz, he's quitting. You know why he's quitting? They don't want to look into his background. Elon Omar's background, where all this money came from. You know what I mean? They got to dig deep into these NGOs and find out how the money, what they got, and how it was dispersed. And then maybe they can lock up somebody.
Well, yeah, then people are going to go to jail. I mean, or they should go to jail. That's why we need an audit. You're right. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So once we find out the extent and the depth of the corruption, then people can start finally being thrown behind bars. Stan, I'm with you all the way. Thank you so much for that call. Michael in Brookline. Thanks for holding, Michael, and welcome.
Happy New Year, Jeff. 3 quick things. Healy has got to go. Keep hitting him on the audit. Number 2, that rant you went on about politicians, it was about 10 minutes ago, was Radio Gold. It was terrific. And finally, Trump has appointed some terrific people, but the Justice Department has been a disappointment so far. And I've heard, anyway, that part of the reason is because they can't get enough attorneys appointed. And I just want to know, is there a blockage there? And does Todd Blanche that name ring any bells for you?
Todd Blanche is Trump's, former personal lawyer. A lot of MAGA people don't like him. They think he's one of the key reasons why Pam Bondi is not making the arrest that she should be making. And now to the U.S. attorneys, you're 1,000% correct. We're about 40 to 50 U.S. attorneys short. And that's on Thune and the Senate Republican leadership. In fact, Trump is very upset, saying, come on, confirm my U.S. attorneys. How am I going to put people in jail if I don't have U.S. attorneys in place? So, I never liked Thune. He's like McConnell. He's part of the swamp. And he's trying to slow walk everything. And that's why I think Trump's going to have to get a new attorney general. I think he can't go on much longer with Pam Bondi. And he's got to put a lot more pressure on John Thune. A lot more pressure. Because he needs a hell of a lot more U.S. attorneys. If he wants to put people in jail and he's serious, he's going to have to bolster his team. Michael, thank you very much for that call. Look, I'm not promising anything because a lot of this depends upon you, the great audience of Kuhner Country. But if you want to do a rally, not now, it's very, very cold and I don't want to risk people getting frostbitten or whatever. But say in the spring when weather warms up, to get a massive crowd, and I would need a massive crowd. I mean thousands upon thousands upon thousands to go to the state capitol